In the context of building a humanity as one family, we have the joy to share our meeting with Anat Baniel, the founder of the Anat Baniel method Neuromovement. This approach to health has changed the destiny of thousands of people. Starting with the quest to improve the overall health, ease the life of aging people, strengthen the body, care for children with special needs, and adults in rehabilitation, Anat Baniel has trained practitioners all over the world to contribute to a better humanity, a contribution that tends towards the spirit of love. This method is based on the power of slow movements, gentleness, subtlety, and many other elements, but mainly a surprising and deep feeling of love, able to restructure your brain through delicate movements. An amazing evolution for all practitioners, from fixing to connecting, according to Sue Bergman, practitioner of this method. She adds, "The more force we use, the more resistance is created, which builds more frustration on all levels. When we start to connect with great love and subtlety, genuinely listening and understanding the person, with no judgment nor expectations, only then can we start to move forward in unity with one another. We wish this experience for everybody, especially people and children with special needs. It surpasses all expectations." So welcome, Anat Baniel. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
So the first question we would like to ask you is, what is your ideal and your values that inspire you in your work?
Wow, that's a serious question. My ideals and my values. Well, I think probably the most core value that I could think of is love and connection and the sense of possibility. So when I'm at the present moment, and either for myself or a child or a mother or whoever it may be, there's a situation that is difficult, I have a very strong sense of possibility. And I don't necessarily know, and oftentimes I don't really know how the solution will come about, but I have had a huge amount of experience that stepping into asking what's possible and what can I do about it creates miracles, basically. You know, of course, combined with what I already know and use, yes.
Wonderful. How do you build a coherence between your knowledge and your vision of the world?
Well, that assumes I do, but maybe tell me a little bit more what you mean by this question.
How do you contribute with what you do, your knowledge, all your experience, and perhaps the hopes or the vision of a better world that we all have or read about? So how do you build a bridge between both?
Well, I think the first most important bridge is doing the work, doing my work. So it's one child at a time, it's one situation at a time, and it's one session at a time. So when you watch the video, for example, on YouTube, you maybe in 10 minutes see a child that was not supposed to ever walk or talk or fill in the blank, and all of a sudden the child is walking and talking. So it looks like it happened in 10 minutes. But very often there is a process that took anywhere between a few weeks to a few months to perhaps a few years. But from time to time, from session to session, from week to week, there is progress. So I think that's the most basic and important way in which I and now many practitioners I've trained bring the work to the world. From that grew the interest of people to both experience it themselves in workshops and so on, and also people wanting to get trained. So now that there are practitioners doing the work out there in the world, it amplifies it significantly. And the books, of course, they are a help too. And then just looking for any opportunity, like talking to you guys now, making connections with amazing people. And the longer I do this work, the more miraculous the people that I meet are. And hopefully some research, we're hoping to do some research. And you know, sometimes it can be a TED Talk, sometimes it can be, we might get lucky for more people, excuse me, to know about it, because for me, my feeling is that the way to reach really, really large number of people is to change the way of thinking of enough people and the beliefs of enough people of what reality is and what is possible. And when that changes, then everybody will start, even in their own way, to act differently so the outcomes are different.
Absolutely, thank you. So the world is unifying above frontiers in a collective and global awareness. How do you participate in the movement that tends to unify the world as one family?
Well, daily. I mean, connecting to more and more people, knowing that we are connected, knowing that there's a huge amount of valuable knowledge in a lot of places, and being aware of also the degree of darkness or lack of, or ignorance or lack of opportunity that people don't know exists. But I think collaboration and exchange of information and getting also energized with each other, you know, so different people do their part of the picture. And my work is about awareness. I mean, the core thing is awareness. I believe it's the highest form of functioning of the human brain. And I believe that newborns and infants actually already use awareness. They don't have words, they don't have language, so people assume they don't have it. Except if they didn't have that, they wouldn't be able to grow and develop. Many children, due to their experiences, lose the practice of awareness, but it can be gained back very, very quickly and very readily. Yep.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Like, what do I do?
Or would you integrate a form of philosophy or spirituality in this practice and method?
For me, the way I call this work, and when I was studying it initially with my teacher, Dr. Feldenkrais, and then evolving it, I label it biological spirituality, because the approach is very science-based and you know, brain and movement and the mechanics of the body and so on. But and I won't go into the theory now, but the way it's done and the fundamentals of like going with the system and not trying to impose on people and allowing for the seemingly miraculous to occur and the whole complexity question and so on. This is spirituality. I tell my students, we have enormous amount of, or we can have enormous amount of say in the process, but we have zero control over the outcome. And most people, when they come in and try to help a child with cerebral palsy or autism, or an adult that has whatever, musician that has pain in their shoulder or whatnot, they try to go to the outcome first. Like, let's fix the shoulder. You know, that's what I talk about, from fixing to connecting. And for me, if I listen to even myself talk, and then I read something about Zen Buddhism, or I take a workshop in meditation, I know we're doing the same thing. We're entering it or from a different direction.
Yes.
Yeah.
How come you become a teacher in ABM? How is you? What has lead you?
You can ask me in French. Je parle français.
Oh.
Okay.
Qu'est-ce qui vous a amené à découvrir la méthode?
Okay, so I did not discover a method, it evolved. So my background, I have a degree in clinical psychology, and I have also a degree in statistics. And one of my teachers was Amos Tversky. His work got the Nobel Prize for decision-making under uncertainty conditions, which is actually very, very relevant. Daniel Kahneman's Thinking Fast and Slow. He was the collaborator. I was Amos' teaching assistant. So I studied psychology, I studied that, and I was a dancer.
Oh.
And what happened was that I decided I want to work with people with more of the expression through the physicality, through the actual sensory experience, and not just through the words and the ideation in relation to emotions and experience. So I looked and looked and looked and looked, and then I remembered my experience with my dance teacher as a small child. We did what was called lessons on the floor. She was a student of Dr. Feldenkrais, and she took his lessons and put it on us, and I was about 7 years old. And every time I did a group lesson, I was a very, very shy girl and very internal. And I would do, so the first time she did it with us, it was like a fish that finally found its water. But I was a child, you know, so I just did it. But afterwards, I would get up and I was like, I felt different and I felt good, and I could do things in you know, the gymnastics that I couldn't do before, and, you know, things like that. So a bunch of years later, when I was in very early 20s and I was doing my grad school, and I was thinking, and then I remembered Moshe Feldenkrais. So I went to him and I started taking private sessions from him, and the first private session, that was it. I had no idea what he was doing. I had no clue, and I knew that that's what I want to learn. I mean, there was not even a hesitation. And I studied with him, and then I ended up, he was much older, I traveled with him, we became very, very close, and I worked with him. And he got me to start working with children. He saw me with a child, I have it in my book, you'll read the first chapter, how it all began. And then he started referring children to me. He didn't work with a lot of children, but in general. But there was an article about him in the Smithsonian magazine. So children started coming about his work with one child. And he said, and he was much older, he said, I will work with you if you see Anat. Never told me, he was like a Jewish Zen teacher, you know. And all these children started coming to me. And I had to work with them, because if Moshe sent them to me, I was going to do it. And it was magical. It was like magical. And the children changed, and then I moved to New York, and by that time people knew about me, so I got word of mouth. I got I worked with musicians, and I worked with dancers, and I worked with the children. And after a few years, because I was so surprised, because it worked, and I started asking, what is it that I do that works? Because in the beginning, it was just like doing things and it works, and doing things and it works. And I started from the platform of what I learned from Moshe. And it was a very powerful platform. He was a remarkable man and a remarkable genius. And then when I started asking the question, I started seeing distinctions. And that's my book. Mm-hmm. I did this and I saw that, and then I did this and I saw that, and then I realized I can generalize it. What I knew all along is that I'm impacting the brain. And it was way before brain plasticity and all this topic, people knowing that the brain change, you know, the book The Brain That Changes Itself, which is a wonderful book with Norman Doidge and all that stuff. That led me to define the 9 essentials, where I said, okay, in principle, if you want to get the brain to wake up to its inclination to create new connections and move in a positive direction, you need to do this. And that's how I defined the 9 essentials. And so it was an evolution from my background in general and specifically with Feldenkrais to working with the kids, working with the musicians, working with really high performers and working with little people that maybe won't be able to function, and realizing it's all the same. The brain works like the brain because it works like the brain because it's a brain. So how do we get the brain to upgrade itself and to do its own job better? And the potency in the nervous system to do that is remarkable, to literally roll itself to higher capabilities of self-organization. So that's how I did it. Or that's how it did me. That's really, I didn't do it, it did me.
May we ask one last question?
Sure.
Yes. From what we've heard from the practitioners, the method, what's important, as you say, is the relationship, the practitioner with the patient or the client.
Yes.
Could you speak a bit about this relationship and the importance of it, perhaps how it functions or how it can also be a condition for the transformation?
Okay, so when I started writing the book, I had an idea that I'll talk about the brain, and then I realized, no. First I'm going to talk how I even got to the point I got to that I'm writing this book. Then I thought, okay, now I'll write about the brain and the essentials. And I just couldn't do it because there was something before everything, and it was the connection. And that's what I said earlier, it's the movement from fixing to connecting. So if I talk about the children specifically right now, or the infants, or even the, how do you call it, the in utero, you have the fetus. By my understanding, human brains are built to grow in the community of other brains. Brains evolve and develop and figure themselves out and form themselves in a community of brains. And usually the newborn is in a community of more developed brains. So the way and the quality that those brains function is enormously important on what will happen to the brain that develops the baby. And so there's a few elements. I'll just say a few, I'm not going to say the whole thing. One of the most basic needs we have is safety. And for us, human safety has to do with connection, physical connection, contact. It's concrete, it's literal. It's not just abstract or some idea or emotion, or it's real. So we are built to be informed and literally form ourselves through movement. That's the main driving mechanism. However, that movement is delivered in a newborn through randomized, like involuntary and random movements, which is extremely important. By the way, some people that promote child development call them useless waste of time. I don't know. And they try to do tummy time. But we'll do another interview about tummy time because we have to kill it off, right? It's a very, very big mistake. But it's became popularized, so everybody says, because everybody else says to do it, right? But so there's the movement, but then we carry the child. We carry them inside, we carry them outside, we carry them. movement is very, very important. But the connection is what is, I think I'll give a metaphor. So, you know, baby dolphin is born. The mommy dolphin doesn't stop swimming because she creates the current that the baby dolphin can utilize to learn how to carry itself. This is, and then after about 3 months, the dolphin can become more, not sink and die, let's put it this way. So the human brain, our connection with the child, our feeling of the child, and our responsiveness to what's happening in the other person provides the other person the opportunity to discover themselves. It's, so if somebody comes to me and their shoulder hurts and they hold it like that, you know, or whatever, I can tell them, take it down, take it down, take it down. But first of all, it usually doesn't work very well. But if I go and I say, oh, their shoulder is up. This is a shoulder, left shoulder up person. It's like you said, this is John, this is who they are now. I go there and I actually support them to hold the shoulder up. And I help them move with the shoulder up. And I see how it relates to other parts of their body. And I see what can be done with it. And I can guarantee you that between 2 to 3 minutes, I will leave the shoulder and it'll go down. Because it discovers this and it discovers other options. A child that, anyway, I can just go for like a month now and not stop talking. But the connection is the most, it's the necessary, required, and the most potent mechanism of driving learning and change in people. And what we do in our work, we teach the students the techniques of connection. It's not manipulation. It's, if I want to connect, how do I do that? Literally, and the development is in the student themselves. They have to evolve. They have to differentiate more. They have to become more refined. They have to become more aware. And through that process, we develop very, very specific tools. And you had the experience of getting those lessons, even when they're still clumsy or they're not really sure what they're doing. And I'm sending them out, you know, in 2 days to practice with other people, because the quality with which they touch people and the connection and the listening, that already drives change in the brain, because the brain goes like, oh, this, oh, okay, I can do also that. Oh, it's amazing, it's so potent. Yeah, thank you for this question. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nat.
Is that kind of like what would be interesting for your people, you think?
Absolutely. We
Yeah.
hope to
Yeah.
promote it in the world.
Yes. Yeah, thank you.
Yes,
Thank you so much.
very interesting.